Welcome, everyone, to episode 74 of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad, rocking a Christmas sweater. Joined alongside me is my brother, Tanner. How's it hanging? And for the folks on YouTube, we'll give you the Christmas sweater. I got the Fleece Navidad going, Gigamags. Tanner's got the Cowboys Christmas sweater. Tanner, show the fans what you got on YouTube real quick. Show them the special you got up your sleeve.
If you're not watching, you should be. Go over to YouTube, go over to RDH Sports, and you can see this beautiful Christmas sweater that I have. Sorry if I blinded some of you, but it's quite a sweater.
All
As
right,
you,
there's lights for those listening right now. He's got lights on his sweater, and I think you might need to put something at the beginning of that episode about flashing
yeah,
lights.
that was good.
Don't worry, it's off. But anyway, Christmas sweaters, we're doing the reason we're rocking sweaters, people, because we're not going to give you an episode next week. I know it's going to be tough, but we're going to jam pack this one for you. So, Tanner, how's it hanging? How's it going over there? We got a lot to get into today.
Yeah, and I usually talk about the weather, and I'll keep it short this week because it's hot and it's December 17th, and I don't know why I don't know whose idea it was, but it's winter. I don't think anyone in Texas knows that, but it is winter and it's hot out. But I'm waiting for something to be cold eventually. But no, I mean, I love the holidays. It's a beautiful time and it's a very cozy time usually. But I love the sweaters. I love this weather. So it could be better, but at least it's not like 100 degrees, in the middle of summer.
You gotta get in the season. We are seasoned peeps. We do like the Christmas season. The Hengst household goes pretty hard. Leanne specifically goes very, very hard in the paint when it comes to Christmas and every season. And I respect the hell out of that. And I'm gonna continue that tradition. And we're going and guess. I mean, folks, I know we went off kind of the deep end right at the beginning here. We're gonna get into football, I promise you. But for those listeners, because I feel like you know me a little bit, right? I put up Christmas lights this year, guys. I put up Christmas lights this year. Wife and I are renting a house, and I did the Christmas lights thing. And shout out to Florida for the hurricane shutters, because if you don't know, if you don't live in Florida, pretty much every house has bolts or whatever screws coming out of the walls because you put on hurricane shutters there for those in Florida, like I said. So I just use those for the lights. You know what I mean? I was like, how am I going to do this? And I was like, I'll just use those. So it worked out. The neighbor's house, he's put me to shame. I'm not going to lie to you. But he was nice enough to give me some Christmas lights. So shout out the neighbors there. Football, we're getting into it. NFL standings, Week 16 matchups. Of course, we got the Heisman, Travis Hunter. We're going to talk about him. I got his updated prospect profile for you. We got some Jonty hyped. It's going to be a real fun game. I'm going to compare the top 28 rushers of all time in the NCAA to Jonty's season. Okay, it's going to be a fun one. And then we're introducing a new segment. For those who know Tanner and I personally, we are big gamers. I know we may not look it. I got all the tattoos. Tanner's got a sweater that lights up, but we are big. There you go. He's got a control right next to you. We're huge gamers. I'm not saying that I'm very good at any games. Tanner's a lot better than I am, but we're introducing a new segment, and it's going to be gaming. And every week, it's at the end of the episode, and we're going to chat about some games. So that's going to be fun. But back up to the top, we've got NFL standings. We're going to talk about every team, AFC, NFC, because there's new teams that have been eliminated and new teams that have clinched. So the AFC starting out, we've got the Buffalo Bills sitting there at 11-3, the Miami Dolphins 6-8, the Jets and the Pats both eliminated from playoff contention. But the Bills are sitting there at 6-8, the Dolphins are sitting there at 6-8. The Bills 11-3. The Bills have a very easy remaining schedule, so it's going to be interesting. I think that, they've already clinched it, so really right now the Bills are just chasing the AFC, lead. Right, they're just chasing number one. It's big news with Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes with that high ankle sprain. But guess what? Beat the Eagles in a Super Bowl on it, so we'll see what happens. If you get number one, then you get to sit a little bit. So for me, if I'm KC, I'm going to keep going. All they got to do is win, one game out of the next three. Actually, they probably need to win two. Now that I think about it, because even if they do lose two and they both go 13 and whatever, 14-3, that's what they both go. Best case scenario here.
Doesn't Buffalo have that tiebreaker?
Buffalo has the tiebreaker. That's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. So Kansas City, realistically, if Buffalo wins, even loses, it's tough. Buffalo has to win out, and KC, if they win a couple games for sure, they're going to be good.
I mean,
But they got the 2-game lead,
it's
so if they don't lose, they're good.
it's not out of the realm of possibility, like you said with Mahomes' injury. Like you got, we don't really know a whole lot about it. Will he start next week? I don't really know. And if Carson Wentz is starting, that gives you a pause for can they win that game. I don't really know who they're playing, but it's still with Carson Wentz. That's a backup. That's not Patrick Mahomes. It's definitely a step down.
Yeah, I mean that's a big step down. The Texans are at the Chiefs on Saturday this week, by the way. That's
Oh,
CJ Stroud coming in there, leading the division.
CJ.
And I'm pretty sure the Texans have already clinched as well. Anyway, continue with Buffalo. What you got on them?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, I think he's the favorite to win the MVP right now, and he looks like it. He's been a fantasy god, and he's just been a god just in general. These back-to-back games against the Rams, and now against Detroit, it seems like it doesn't really matter what Buffalo's defense is going to do. Josh Allen's just going to match it, and he's going to up you one pretty much every single time. I mean, he's doing stuff that people don't do. I think he's pretty much easily the best quarterback this season, hands down. I think you could give it to Lamar, but Josh Allen is doing unworldly like things. You just look at his play and you're like, how did he do that? Like he's just like running around the field outside the pocket. He just makes these plays that you just can't cover, and it's just like, oh, what do you want him to do? He's a menace on the goal line. He's a menace when he's outside of the pocket. He's a menace inside of the pocket. He's super accurate and he's going to deliver a ball like right in the money every single time. And if he doesn't, he's going to get that ball out and give him another chance to do it on the next down. So he's making good decisions finally, and he's taken that step upward that we've been talking about on this podcast for the last year or so. We've known Josh Allen to be this superstar, this guy that can go out there and win games, but it was those turnovers, it was that extra layer of decision making that he wasn't getting, right? So I think he's there. I think he wins the MVP. Not a discredit to any of their players. I think there's a lot of really, really good quarterbacks this year, in stark contrast to last year. You go look at
And Saquon.
oh my gosh, I didn't even say Saquon. Yeah, like this is a crazy season. So if you could give the MVP to, all these guys, I wish you could, but unfortunately it does go to the best player, and I think it's hands down Josh Allen this year. So I hope they get the number one seed, man, and it looks like it's starting to be that, that script storybook kind of ending for the Buffalo Bills. If they get that number one seed, that's going to be dangerous in the playoffs. I mean, you saw what they did to the 49ers, at home in the snow, like no one wants to play there. So that would be a massive momentum shift just in the AFC in general. If they get that number one seed. So it's a race, and Josh is not going to slow down anytime soon. So
No, and unfortunately, in fantasy football terms, I'm playing Tanner in two leagues this week. One of them's a championship league, double elimination. He's the commish of the other one. I'm commish of, and 2 out of 3 leagues playing Tanner's not fun. It's not fun. It's a tough scene because right now he's the kryptonite of the Hangst household. So we are. If you're pulling for fantasy this week, give me some nods. Tanner's, even though I've got some trophies, he doesn't need to get it again. Anyway, Miami though,
give me some nods.
sitting there at 6-8. The Bengals 6-8. The Colts 6-8. But then you have the Chargers that are 8-6.
Mm-hmm.
So realistically, you've got. We're going to get to the AFC West and we're going to talk about that. But you've got 3 teams right now in the AFC that are sitting there at 6-8. And Miami this week has a big test because they play the 49ers, who are a team that is 6-8. So you're not going to win the division because Buffalo's already locked it up. They have a 5-game lead on them, but now you're really going for the wild card side. And unfortunately, it's 6-8. That is a record where you're looking anywhere between 12 and literally pick 20 in the draft, because that means you could end up 9-8 or 8-9, and you could be on the outside looking in if you're 8-9 this year. But the thing with this Miami Dolphins team is the inconsistency. And in fantasy football terms, if you got Tyreek Hill, I'm sorry, but if you got Devon Achane, let's ride. You know what I mean? Gig max. Shout out Achane. But Miami this year is just so many ups and downs. This is not a team to me that is going to. They could make the playoffs for sure, but in terms of making it far into the playoffs, not when you got teams like KC and you got teams like Buffalo and Baltimore and Pittsburgh, in the Bengals are looking. And on the outside, you've got Denver playing very well. You've got the Chargers too. So you've got so many good teams this year. Buffalo to me is Miami to me is not really going to get that nod, but they have to win some football games. You have to win minimum 2 out of the next 3 if you want a shot at the playoffs. And this week is a big test against the 49ers that we'll be picking in the next segment. Do you have anything on the Dolphins, or are we jumping to the AFC North?
Just stinks that Tua had those injuries earlier in the season, or I think we'd be talking a little bit differently about this last playoff spot, because it's going to come down to the wire. But I think those teams, just in general, the ones that you mentioned, they will need some help, like from the Chargers, from potentially the Broncos. So the Chargers are probably that 7 seed as we're talking about it right now. So they got to lose, I think, 2 out of the next 3 as well, in addition to the other teams, kind of winning those 2 out of the next 3. So it's not over yet, but you definitely need the Chargers to fall, and I think they're kind of in the driver's seat. They control their own destiny. So
yeah, when you have a 2-game lead with 3 games left in the season, it's not too shabby, but I've seen the Eagles fumble it before. AFC North, you've got the Steelers that have clinched, the only team that's clinched in this division at 10-4. Baltimore 9-5, Cincy at 6-8, Cleveland at 3-11 with eliminated Cleveland. Pittsburgh again, another week, another time they're sitting at the top of the division, looking like a solid football team. You can't really say anything other than coaching and defense with them. Then you have the Ravens, and you have Lamar get 5 touchdowns and throw more touchdowns than he did in completions last week. Like that Baltimore team is so good, and they have 5 losses. And then you have the Bengals that won last week, and Joe was pissed. Like pissed. You know what I mean? And that's what you like to see out of a competitor. I think, I saw an Instagram thing with DraftKings, and it was like they showed what he was mouthing, and Joe was not happy. And for me, that's what you want to see in a competitor and a quarterback. And if I'm a Bengals fan, that fires me the hell up. And not to mention, because you need to continue to win if you're the Bengals, because you're on the outside looking in at this point. Not to mention you're 3rd in your division. You're not catching Baltimore. I don't see Baltimore losing the next 3 games, and even then, I don't think the Bengals get the go-ahead tie. I could be wrong there. And then, you have Pittsburgh right there. So for me, the biggest disappointment this season, Cleveland, we already knew was going to be there at number 4. Like I knew that was going to happen. These other 3 teams are completely up for debate. And for me, the Steelers, I thought had for sure solidified that number 3 spot. But now going forward, you can't ever count them out with Mike Tomlin, because another draft, another year of free agency, they're going to continue to get better. But last thing I'll say with the Cincinnati Bengals is that this offseason is going to tell a lot, man. You've got 2 wide receivers. You've got your number 1 and number 2 wide receiver. I don't think they're going to keep both. So therefore, you're bringing back Jamar Chase. You're not going to let him walk. Or you lock up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for the foreseeable future. You already got Joe Burr locked. So for me, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. And it depends on how you want to build your team. You know what I mean? Do you want to pay $40-50 million most likely to T. Higgins, if not more than that? If you're not doing just, because that's the thing, like you're going to sign T to a 3-4 probably, and you're going to sign him for the wide receiver market with T.
30 million.
I don't know. Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's not going to be a cheap contract. And then Jamar, good luck. Good luck, because he's going to be number 1. It's like CD just signing a blank check. But what do you have on this AFC North? I mean, this is a hell of a division. I would argue the best division in the AFC. And I think you easily have 3 teams that are going to make it through. Well, sorry, easily 2 teams that are going to make it through to the playoffs. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, another 6-8 team.
And I'll start on the since we just talked about, I'll start with the Bengals and their situation moving forward. I mean, Jamar's been the best receiver in the league this year. He's been that guy. He's uncoverable, and he's in a contract year, pretty much like you said. If they paid him before this season, I don't know if he would have this type of success. Probably would, but he'd be on a cheaper price tag. So now the Bengals are kind of paying for not paying him this past offseason. So he's going to demand number 1 receiver money, and he's going to get paid like you said, blank check. He's the best receiver. You don't do anything about it. You pay that guy, and then you run with it, because that's Joe's guy. And you're gonna see success. There's no world in which Jamar Chase leaves the Bengals, period. Now with T. Higgins, you're about
He's
to pay.
Gone.
You're about to pay number 1 receiver money, and you're about to pay like top 5 right next to it. So I don't know if they can even do that. I don't know their salary cap situation, but they let Tyler Boyd go last season or the season before because of that exact same reason. They just he's a veteran, like we get it. He can add a lot to that team, but price tag's too high, and they knew that this Jamar contract was coming up. So I I think T Higgins. I think he's a very excellent receiver, and I think like the whole the thing about him that everyone says is like he's a number one receiver, kind of anywhere he goes, right? That's the things people say about him. And if it's true, he could go anywhere and demand a lot of money, right? Especially like a receiver needy team, like New England, who's got a young quarterback that could learn and definitely benefit from a guy like that. So I think teams will be aggressive in trying to sign him too. So that's only going to make that price tag go up and up and up. So
And
with the
and to
Bengals, it's going to be
interject real
tough.
quick, to interject and to prove your point even more, how much did Calvin Ridley go for last year or the year prior to that? Like $70+ million.
Yeah, it was.
So, the Tennessee Titans are a team that we're not going to hit on because they're not doing too hot. But you're telling me you're not gonna get more than him?
Yeah,
So,
easily.
to prove your point even more,
Yeah, and it's just
tough.
I just don't think you can pay both of them. Obviously, there's one you should prioritize, and your priorities are pretty obvious at this point. But I,
T's nasty though.
T's very good, but he's been I'm not saying he's a bad receiver by any stretch of the means, but he's not Jamar
Yeah.
Chase. He's not. He's not Jamar Chase, and I don't think you should pay him like Jamar Chase. But you're gonna have to pay him somewhat close to that number. So, but that being said, they're gonna have to go into some salary cap gymnastics in the offseason to see if they can keep him. But I hope they get him because that's a nasty duo with him and T. There's not really one you can't cover. If you leave T on an island, he's gonna burn you. So I think that team would benefit from him coming back. But I just don't. I just don't see a world where it could happen. Obviously, I'm not in the front office. I don't handle the money. I don't see what they see, but so they could if they somehow manage it. But I don't know. But moving on with the Steelers and the Ravens, this week I believe is for the division. Not like for the division, but it definitely helps, moving forward because of those two play each other, and I think that they play each other again at the end of the season, but or not again at the end, but they still play some divisional games because they've already played once. But this is a big game. This is going to decide who's going to be in the driver's seat moving forward for the AFC North because, like you said, one team is 9-5. That's the Ravens. The other team is 10-4. That's the Steelers. So if they tie, whoever wins this game, I believe, gets that tiebreaker, and they're going to kind of be in the driver's seat. And with 2 games left, you don't want to be the team, kind of on the outside. You want to be the team that can control your own destiny. So that being said, too, I think the Steelers, they play the Chiefs and the Bengals to end the season after that. So it's like, ooh, that's not a great schedule. Um, the Ravens, they play the Texans and the Browns to end the season. So I think the Ravens would definitely benefit from winning this game. A whole lot more than the Steelers would. Yeah, because they do have that game behind. So it's going to be interesting. The teams got to both really win, but this is a really important game for this division moving forward, and it's probably going to indicate who wins this division, unless the other team just kind of falls off, towards the end. That's really it. But with Patrick Mahomes, kind of his availability in the air right now, you really don't know with that KC game too. So very interesting. I will be keeping my eyes glued on this game probably this weekend as well, just because it has so many big implications for the future. But I mean, does George Pickens play? Like all this kind of stuff. So it's gonna matter, and it's gonna be a war over there.
It's going to be a very good game, and that's a Saturday game. The next segment, we're gonna talk about those games. We've got the AFC South now. We've got Houston, who is clinched a spot, and then you have Indianapolis, who is still up in the air. Jacksonville and Tennessee have both been eliminated at 3-11. Indy 6-8. Houston 9-5. Not going to talk at length about the Jaguars, the Titans, or really the Colts. To be honest, the Jaguars have taken the biggest step back in this division, even though Tennessee is in last place. They both have the same record. But before CJ Stroud came in the league last year, this was Jacksonville's division, in my opinion. And then CJ Stroud turned that around in his rookie year. There was no way he wasn't going to win this division in his rookie year. And he's not like he's not having as good of a season, statistically speaking, but CJ is still winning football games and 9-5. You know what I mean? In his second year in the NFL. So
Oh darn.
Trevor, yeah, and Trevor right now, he's gotten paid and everything, and you can argue that if you wanted to start a franchise, 9 out of 10 fans is probably going to be picking C.J. Stroud there. Tennessee, you got a lot to do in the draft. Colts, you also have a lot to do in the draft. Do they want to keep Anthony Richardson? I think that you don't have enough game tape. You literally don't even have a full season under your belt with him with injury, so they're definitely going to continue to push that narrative. What do you do when you have a quarterback like that? Oh, simple. You go in the draft and you get offensive linemen, you get wide receivers, you get running backs, and you get tight ends. You get everybody around him to make him better. Well, you already have Jonathan Taylor there, so you're probably not going to get a halfback. The contract's going to be coming up soon, though, so it's on the outside looking in. It's definitely not a bad situation there to get halfback. You've got a wide receiver in Michael Pittman that's solid, but has completely disappeared this season. You know what I mean? I had him in fantasy to start the year, and we'll hit you with the bye-bye. You know what I mean? By week 5, he went. I mean, it wasn't even close. Drake London is like outperforming him, and to be honest, I thought those two were very similar in terms of skill level coming into this season and kind of ceiling and where they would be statistically. But hey, every year you have some surprises. Texans, though, this is a squad that is built around CJ and some pretty solid pass rushers. And then you've got some guys on the cornerback position that are young, Derek Stingley, that didn't in that draft. Sauce got taken, and then they got, or no, I don't remember if Sauce went before Stingley or not. I don't remember if the Texans took Stingley right before Sauce or Sauce right afterward. But regardless,
I don't remember.
the Texans got Stingley in that draft.
Yeah.
And he's back there.
Well, it
so
was
that's Texans.
Wasn't Stingley the draft before CJ? Because they got CJ and Will Anderson in that first round, and that was their only 2 first-round picks. So I thought it was the round before, or the draft before, right?
Yeah, it was like I think they had like pick 3 or something, and
it was high. It was a very high pick. I think he was number.
Yeah.
I want to say Stingley was the top corner off the board. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
because the Jets always suck, so they're kind of always in that top 3 spot as well. And the Texans until recently also kind of suck. So I mean they might have been taken very close to one another. I don't know if are they even. Yeah, I don't know. That's something to look up. But no, man. I mean, with this division, I think it's interesting. We talk about the AFC North, and we just kind of assumed that the Texans are going to be locked into that number 4 seed, and they're going to play the loser of the AFC North. But that's not necessarily the case anymore, especially if Baltimore wins on Saturday. Then it throws a wrench into everyone's plans about who's going to be that 3 and 4 seed and who's going to be playing either Pittsburgh/Baltimore or whoever's going to play the 3 seed or whoever's going to be the 3 seed playing that 6 seed, which is probably going to be Denver, which I would say is a much better matchup.
The Derek Stingley, I was correct. They picked 3, and then the Jets picked right before at 4. Listen to this top 5 pick. You had Jacksonville, who took Trayvon Walker, who you remember when that pick happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, they should have taken Hutch if they were going to take somebody. Aiden Hutchinson goes number 2, Derek Stingley 3, Sauce Gardner 4, Kayvon Thibodeau 5.
That's wild.
Ikem Ekwonu, North Carolina State 6, tackle. Evan Neal, Alabama, tackle. Drake London, Charles Cross, Mississippi State, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, Jordan Davis, Kyle Hamilton.
Yes, that's a list.
Wow. That's why we go so hard into the draft, because you get drafts like that. And we called that draft on this show. All right, Tanner, go ahead and finish this off with the AFC South, and then we're jumping in the last division in the AFC.
Houston still has a lot to play for. I know that they are not, in pretty much any danger of losing that division. I'm pretty sure they've locked it up at this point. So they're just looking to get the 3 seed, because honestly, I would much rather play a 6 seed in Denver if it does go down like that. Because they do have 9 wins now, though, so they could be. I mean, it's a whole lot. It depends on what shapes out in the AFC West and the in the AFC North, but that's pretty much where Houston fans are going to be looking. Keep winning your games. Obviously Houston wants to win, but the 4 seed is not the best home field advantage, unfortunately, especially later in the playoffs. You want that higher seed so you can get those better matchups, and so you can kind of avoid those bigger teams, those number 1 teams, that sleeping giant with the bye week in that first week of the playoffs, because the last thing you want to do is go to KC, go to Buffalo. When you're a 4 seed, the 2 and the 3, they both win. Like, that's where you're going. Sorry, CJ, this Texas team, so I I wouldn't want to do that. So it's definitely in their best interest to try and go for that 3 seed. Obviously, they're going to keep winning, but it's going to be interesting to see how things shape up and how things turn out with the end of the year with the Texans in that race for the 3 seed. I would say in the AFC.
AFC West, last division. Then we're jumping in the NFC. You got the Vegas Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders at 2-12. The Raiders. You got the Chargers at 8-6, 8-6
Mm-hmm.
in third place. The Denver Broncos at 9-5,
Yeah, there you
and then
go.
the Kansas City Chiefs at 13-1. We all knew the Raiders didn't take a step up, especially when they lost. Josh Jacobs, then Devontae Adams goes midseason. We kind of knew that was going to happen, right? So not a ton of time there. We're going to be talking about them a lot because they're going to have a top draft pick. We're going to go into it a lot, and Shador is linked to there in New York, big time. So we're going to get into that in future episodes. But the Chargers, you knew Harbaugh was going to come in and just get it. Like, I don't know. Whenever you have Harbaugh coming back into the league off national championship, Michigan, if you were to told me at the beginning of the season, if he goes 8-9, is that a bad season for Harbaugh? For me, I'm kind of like, yeah, because he's already been in the NFL, and that's just not really how Harbaugh works. He's like, even if the team's not that great, it's like, how's he winning so much? Him and his brother, all they do is freaking win,
Mm-hmm.
and he's kind of doing it again this year. And he's 8-6, But to be fair, you got rid of every single receiver on your team. Like, it's your first year, new system, new everything. Justin Herbert looks solid. This is your guy for sure for the future. And Harbaugh, you never know. When you have a new coach coming in and a quarterback sitting there, that could be the first thing to go. But with Harbaugh, there's no way. And you could tell how good Justin Herbert is and everything. And then, I mean, I don't know if it's the surprise of the league, but the surprise for the AFC for me, for sure, is the Denver Broncos. The turnaround with Oregon quarterback Bo Nix and going 9-5 and being a top 10 fantasy quarterback this season. Top 10. Bo Nix. Okay. Go back to episode 50. Listen to his prospect profile. It was a solid one, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got on the Chargers and the Broncos? Because I can't even really get into KC yet because I know KC is going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, I know you said this that the AFC North is the strongest division in the AFC, but I don't know. This one is vying for number
Real
one as
close.
well. Like it's definitely close call between that and the AFC North, just based on records alone and the fact that this team is probably going to have 3 playoff teams coming out of it, most likely. So like I was saying with the Texans whole thing, like it's going to be key to continue to win games in this division and it's a tough division to win games in just in general. So the fact that Harbaugh comes in and he is putting up the numbers that he's doing, and just completely changes how this team works. Herbert, historically, since when he's been in with the Chargers, he's been kind of that pass first under Brandon Staley, throwing for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Go to Keenan Allen, go to Mike Williams. Like, let's get these guys involved early. Let's air attack. Very modern NFL offense. But Harbaugh, he comes in, and he's like, nah, come on, J.K. Dobbins, just rip it through the middle. Drafts an offensive lineman in Joe Alt, and they're like, screw the receivers. Let's just go on the ground and get this going. So I think this is really the first time Herbert's had a really, really solid run game. Just I don't know if in his career, but definitely recently. Like it's.
I mean, he's had pretty decent, but at the same time, like you said, like it's built around him,
Mm-hmm.
and in the run, I don't know.
It's second. It's Brun has always been second, and
Yeah.
as a Chargers fan, you're never a team that's going to go out there and demand on the ground. Just Brandon Staley, he's not going to let you do that. So I think this is a run first team, and J.K. Dobbins has had a great year, and Gus Edwards behind him has been all right. So we'll see where it goes with them, but Herbert looks comfortable. He's making these big throws. He doesn't have to be the hero every single game. He doesn't have to go out there throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He can. But he's not straying away from that game plan, and it's working, and he's having a lot of success in a very, very tough division. So same can be said for, Sean Payton absolutely turning around his franchise in no time, pretty much at all. Everyone was like, oh, whatever, Russell Wilson, whatever. It's like Sean Payton, not a great head coach anymore. Well, I think, give him a guy that he can make and give him a guy who he can develop, and boom, Bo Nix, an excellent learner, a guy who can just absorb information and just out, outlay it into the NFL. A guy who I said whenever he was drafted is a guy that gets better and better and better every single year that he plays. Just statistically, he's always improving his game. So he's a grinder. He knows how to get the most out of those sessions and those training and practices and everything. So he's that quarterback moving forward. I think he's their guy. And I mean, heck, he's looking like he's gonna. It's between him and Jaden for the rookie of the year. So you
And
said
Brock Bowers.
and Brock Bowers too. That's right. Brock Bowers didn't have a great game last night though, so we'll see. But I mean, he's on the Raiders. It's kind of tough. They don't have a quarterback. But like, I just don't. Why don't we talk about the Raiders? Well, that's kind of lame, But with the Chiefs, they're number one seed right now. That's going to be interesting moving forward with Carson Wentz. But we talked about it already. But no, I just that it's a race. It's a race for number two in this division. And if you're getting number two in this division, you're probably getting the 6th seed, and maybe even the 5 seed if some luck falls with the AFC North. Which if Baltimore wins this weekend, you are a very happy AFC West fan just in general. So I will say that. But I mean, this is a massive, massive weekend in terms of seeding moving forward. So and these two divisions that we've talked about are like the prime two that it has to do with. So it'll be interesting. I mean, those two games. I wouldn't want to draw the Chargers. I wouldn't want to draw the Broncos in the playoffs. If you're a team like maybe if you're Buffalo, they drop down to a 7 seed, like maybe, but like if you're a 3 seed in Baltimore, I don't know if I would want to play a Bo Nix. I don't know if I'd want to play a Chargers, especially the Harbaugh again, which might happen. But like it's a tough. I mean the Texans too. They're a little weak right now. You don't want to play a strong 5 seed like the Broncos or the Chargers too. So they're a dangerous team. They could make some noise in the playoffs. Both of them.
They definitely could. And KC is KC. They have lost one game, and I think they've looked like the worst team I've seen over the past 3 seasons. And they have one of the best records I've seen. Like they're leaning on their defense, and now with Mahomes like being with the high ankle sprain, that's something going forward that you have to absolutely monitor, especially if you have him in fantasy. Unfortunately, I do. And it's one of those things where it's like, do you start him this week? If they get out to a big lead, do they pull him? They've done that in the past. Who knows how I mean, a high ankle sprain. I've had one of those before playing soccer, and it was so painful. I don't even understand how he was able to, let alone finish the Super Bowl and or be up to practice today. You know what I mean? Like potentially could practice today. But Mahomes is a warrior, and all he's got to do is win. If he wins a couple games, and he can rest for a while, to be honest. Like he can rest for at least a couple weeks there, especially if they lock up the number 1 seed. And they've got to come to KC. Doesn't have to worry about travel for weeks after that. Like that's very dangerous if KC gets that spot. You do not want to go into Kansas City. And this AFC just division in general. I mean, the playoffs, this is when it gets fun. This is when it gets really fun because good football teams have to play good football teams, and great football teams have to play great football teams. And so that's when shit gets real, and when football gets real fun, and it's almost on every single freaking day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's real fun. NFC time, NFC East. We're going to start with them this week. We ended with them last week, but NFC East. New York Football Giants, the only team in this division that is eliminated, 2-12. Dallas sitting there at 6-8. Washington at 9-5. The Philadelphia Eagles have clinched with 12-2. So obviously, we all knew the Giants were going to be there. I thought Washington was going to be before the season. I predicted them being at number 3, Dallas at number 2, and Philly at number 1. Washington took a step up from Jaden Daniels in the draft and Dan Quinn and all of the additions that he made over the offseason, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, because they haven't done a whole ton on the offensive side of the ball with Washington. So Washington, hell of a year. Keep it rolling. I'm interested to see how far Jaden gets. Dallas, you've got a lot to talk about because most likely you're probably going to go 7-9. And in worst case scenario, Dallas goes 8-9. And that is a draft pick that, hey, I stopped kind of naming names at Kyle Hamilton on that last draft. There's definitely guys that went after him for sure, but after pick 15, it gets dicey, and it gets real dicey when it comes to second contracts and draft success. And Dallas has had some draft success, but as of recently, in the top couple rounds, it's getting a little sketchy. And with all the positions of need that Dallas has, and all the starters they have that they need to get, it's a very, very big offseason. But Giants, maybe Shador and Malik would be okay. That'd be I've said it. That's gonna happen. And then Dallas, you know what I mean? And then you've got Washington. So what do you got on these three teams?
It's definitely a quarterback for the Giants. I think we know that. It's just dependent on which one they want to go with. Will they pull their normal Giants pick and just pick someone you've never heard of? Or are they just going to,
Daniel Jones
sit
from
sit
Duke.
pretty and get Shador? Or, if they don't get that number one pick, if I think Travis Hunter, we'll see, obviously come draft time, we'll talk about it a little bit more. Travis Hunter definitely in the mix in those top couple picks, but they need a quarterback. Is it Shador? Is it Cam Ward? Is it any of these other guys? Don't really know. It'll be interesting. We don't know how they evaluate talent over there in New York. It may or may not be good, but they did draft Saquon very, very high, so we know they know what good talent is, right? So we'll see what route they go, but that can change the franchise. Jaden Daniels being the prime example, CJ Stroud being the prime example of how you can just turn your franchise, flip it on its head basically overnight, and they've got a good roster already to begin with. So I like Washington. I think that they get that probably that 7 seed, and that's not the best seed, especially for them because either you're going to go and play against the 2 seed in that first round, which is going to be either Philly or Detroit. And I don't, or I guess technically maybe Minnesota, since they did win and since they are very close with Detroit in that entire division, because that's going to be a race for the finish. We'll talk about it in a minute, but I think they get that. I think they lock up a playoff spot towards the bottom, and hopefully they get a little luck from the Packers. But the Packers are kind of hot right now, so I do not want that 7 seed. I would say in the NFC, just in general, because you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna have to play a very, very tough team. I'm not saying the 3 seed is a whole lot better, but it makes it a little bit easier. The closer you get to that 5 seed, then yeah, it's gonna be nice. Like that's gonna be probably the Bucks or Atlanta, I would assume. So it's like that's kind of where you want to sit. You want to sit in that 5 seed area. You really don't kind of want to go up, to Philly, to Detroit, to Minnesota in any of these situations. Like that's not going to be fun, especially for a young quarterback in a very, very hostile environment in Jaden Daniels. So I think he's getting better and better every single game. You just see him and Terry McLaurin have a special connection, and it looks like he's just been unlocked this year with Jaden Daniels. So this team's dangerous. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, like the names go on and on this team. So they're going to make some moves, I think, in the playoffs. They're going to make some waves, but I just want to see how Jaden plays under the lights, really. Like, because we know what Jaden can do now. We know that he's a good quarterback, that he can win football games, that he can give his team a very, very good chance to win, and he can make some highlight plays doing it. But what does he look like under the biggest lights? So that's my question moving forward. We won't get it answered for a couple more weeks, but put his team in the best situation to get a good playoff spot. That's kind of what you're looking at right now for Washington. But the other rest of the division, Cowboys, obviously, I'm pretty sure they're not technically out of it, but they are pretty much out of it, and they keep winning. I don't know what that says about the football team. It's well coached. I'll give you that. They're better than like the lower half of the NFL, I guess. But like where do you go from there? Your draft pick is continuously getting worse. I'm not saying go and tank or doing anything like that, but it makes it a little bit tougher when you're trying to, get a couple guys for cheap that are going to help your football team kind of immediately. And, you're kind of playing yourself out of that situation. So it makes it tough.
And not to mention the fact too, like Steven came out and already said, like we're going to have a similar. We, meaning the Dallas Cowboys, are going to have a similar free agency that they did last season, and they signed nobody. Mm-hmm. So for me, we already knew what was going to happen going into the season. Like we called it. Maybe we were a little bit too generous with giving Dallas that 2nd seed, but now, I mean, unfortunately, if Dallas doesn't make a ton of moves, it's going to be the exact same song, exact same dance last year. Because even with Shador and the Giants, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the draft. We have no idea where the quarterbacks are going to go yet. We don't know if Shador's even going to be number 1. We could have a random curveball at number 1 with that one draft when Baker goes number 1. Everyone's like, what? I thought he was like going 4 or 5. You know what I mean?
100%.
But Washington, big ups this season. And then you've got the Philadelphia Eagles right now that are probably the best team in the NFC. I mean, you've got 3 teams in the
Mhm.
NFC that are 12-2, but one of the best teams, if not the top 1, 2, or 3 team, you can kind of insert wherever you want to see them. But they got Saquon, and every year, if you watch the Eagles, you go, man, if they get a really good running back, we could be in trouble. Well, it happened, and he's literally up for the MVP. And AJ Brown, you see all the stuff in the media that goes by. Well, this week he got his cake and ate it too. So that team is going to be fine. And when you're in Philly, when you're in New York, when you're in that kind of state and that kind of media coverage and everything, it feels like it blows everything up out of proportion a lot of the times. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And with Cowboy fans, half the shit I get sent's like, well, that's not true. You know what I mean? So it's kind of similar when it comes to the Eagles. But can't say enough good things about the Eagles, and it hurts to do so, but can't say enough good things. Do you have anything else on the Eagles, or are we gonna move on to the NFC North?
They're just very good at football. I'll give you that.
Nice. That's a great way to end it. Time to go to the North. We have Chicago, who has been eliminated at 4-10. We have Green Bay, who has not made the playoffs yet, at 10-4. That's absurd. You have the Minnesota Vikings that have clinched the playoffs at 12-2, and the Detroit Lions, who have clinched the playoffs at 12-2. Chicago, offensive line, first 3 rounds. That's
Yeah.
it. It's just that simple. That's all you need to do. You see spurts from Caleb. I understand there are definitely missed throws this season. 100%. The transition to the NFL has not been seamless whatsoever. But I think this is the guy that's going to get some stuff done in Chicago. I could be wrong, but my thing with Caleb is he's running for his life, and right now, watching the game, I think he was hit or sacked. I think he was sacked 56 times, and the highest anybody's ever been sacked in the rookie seasons was I think Derek Carr, or no, David Carr, if I'm not mistaken, for the Texans. I saw the stat that they flashed up, and it was like 72 times in a season. And you got to remember that they don't have an extra game at the end of that season. They only had 16 games, and now they got 17. So Caleb's probably going to beat that because
Yeah.
Caleb gets sacked like 5-6 times every single game,
I
if
want
not
to say
more.
I want to say he's already set a franchise record for Bears, for just the Bears in general.
Easily, yeah, easily. And not to mention, if Troy Aikman said it best on the Monday Night Football broadcast. He holds on to the ball long. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like to just get rid of it and throw it away. He takes sacks. So there are some of those that are definitely on him. But if you take a step back and you can't even get to 2 seconds in your head, and you're already your left tackle's already fallen on the ground, and the defensive lineman's already behind you and on you, any quarterback, it's going to be hard to do. No matter how good you are. And you look at all the good teams, they have solid offensive lines. So Chicago has to build offensive line. They have to. It's just that simple. The Green Bay Packers. This is a team that you said was going to win this division at the beginning of the year, and I gave you so much shit for it. And they're only 2 games behind. They may not win the division, but the fact that they're only 2 games behind in this division is absolutely absurd. And not to mention all of the ups and downs with the injury history this season with the
Yeah.
Packers. They haven't all been healthy ever. So this is a great team going in. What do you got on the Bears and the Packers?
The Bears and the Packers, with the Bears specifically, you look at Caleb and you look at the other rookie quarterbacks this year and just in recent memory, and it's like, okay, what is Caleb doing wrong? Like what is going on in his situation? Like, why is he not getting better? Why is he just kind of in this state where it's like, okay, he's just not doing a whole lot. He's not giving his team a whole good chance to win. But it's you can blame it on a whole lot of things. Yes, he's a rookie. A lot of them have been his fault. But his situation is probably the worst in the NFL. He doesn't have a head coach. His offensive coordinator got fired. So it's going
His
to be
head coach got fired.
Yes. And it's going to be a completely new regime going in there next season. So he's going to have to learn a whole new playbook. He's going to have to start pretty much from scratch and do it all over again. And who kind of has that similar situation, that similar kind of path in the NFL? Trevor Lawrence, the guy we talked about not long ago. And it's not really going too well, unfortunately. I think Caleb's got talent. Very similar to how Trevor Lawrence absolutely has talent. Clear cut number 1 in that draft. Clear cut the guy that you want to start your franchise with in that draft. But it's not really going that well. I think Trevor Lawrence got paid on the hope that he has that talent, and it's just been bad situation after bad situation. And I think that's kind of where Caleb is right now. I think that he's going to stay that quarterback. He has talent. You see it every once in a while, and they just need to get a guy in there. Just consistent coaching, consistent
Offense.
staff, and an offensive guy who can kind of develop Caleb, who can kind of like fix, his little problems, fix that, stop taking those sacks, stop doing this thing. Someone that can kind of tweak Caleb and make him not changing his game, but just make him, the parts of his game that are just, negatives, cons, just
It's
bad plays and stuff.
it's NFL coaching,
Yeah.
right? Like that's all it is. Like you get different coaches, and you've seen so many players and athletes now with podcasts and everything the way they are, right? So many interviews with ex NFL players that are like, yeah, I went to this new situation, it was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right? Or a new coach came in and it was like, oh, it was new life, and it, the playbook was great and it featured all this kind of stuff. Like, if they don't get an offensive guy, I don't know. You know what I mean? What are you really doing? Because when you look at the offensive side of the ball, I get the defense has names. When you look at the offensive side of the ball in Chicago, like look at those names. Look at the names they have on that side of the ball. So for me, I'm in agreement there. I'm in agreement there. But it's Chicago's got a big climb to make, especially in this freaking division for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and luckily, these games that they do play against these divisional opponents, at least, in some games this year, they've been competitive. It's not like they're going out there to getting destroyed every single divisional game. I mean, they they get a field goal blocked, all this stuff. Just a lot of situations where it's like, okay, well, that could have been, easily turned around if we had just done, the correct thing, not done something stupid, so they've been at the bad side of these very close games this season, outside of the division and in the division, unfortunately. So I think the record should, on paper, be a little bit higher, and you look at those games, but it's at least you're going to get a hype draft pick out of it. At least you're going to go get a guy that's going to help your franchise pretty much immediately at 4-10. You're going to get a top 10 draft pick, and hopefully you go get that cornerstone left tackle, right tackle, offensive lineman, just in general. That's just going to send your offensive line be like, oh, so this is how we block. Kind of like get a guy in there who knows how to kind of mitigate that. Those sacks with Caleb. So I think that there's a lot of hope for Bears fans. I think that this was just, no one was expecting, at least I was expecting them to go out there, win a Super Bowl with Caleb. I get it. The pieces were great. We were saying that there could be a playoff team, but that was kind of where the conversation stopped. No one was saying that they're going to go out there and be like amazing. There was the potential to be there. And you see it in other places, but no, I think he's got time. He needs to learn, but he's still the guy. I like Caleb a lot. But that being said, on the Bears, with the Packers, man, I mean, this is Jordan Love football. I say it every week to you, Chad, and he just rips that thing down the field, and he's just like, all right, let's go. And Christian Watson making athletic plays on the sideline. Romeo Doubs kind of cementing himself as that number one receiver from Jordan Love. He's been fantastic. So this is a scary team. I do not want to play the Packers in the playoffs just in general. I get it. They're not going to be at home. They won't have that Lambeau Field type advantage, but in their division, man, they keep it competitive. I think this is a good football team. They're genuinely very good. They're going to have to go on the road, which is kind of the thing that scares me a little bit. But they destroyed Dallas last year, and they looked like they can play on the road. And Jordan Love, at least historically, in the one season that we've seen, gets better throughout the year. And I think he's starting to do that again this year. You see this team, they got a matchup on Monday night against New Orleans, which I really think Jordan's going to have a good game. But that's just it's just the Packers. LaFleur's got these guys going. Josh Jacobs has been one of the best running back. He's not Saquon Barkley, but he's been, that tier below Saquon Barkley, one of the best running backs in the NFL this season, right? So, man, I like the Packers. I have, but if you were going to go into the season and say that they're like 10-4 with like 3 games left, I'd be like, yeah, they probably have a shot at the division, right? No, they really don't. You got 2 other teams right above them at 12-2, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe not this year. So it's like their division is absolutely stacked. So I'll let you go on the Vikings and the Lions, but I mean Packers. I think you got to give them their flowers too in the NFC. Yeah, even though there are some absolute juggernauts out there.
Yeah, and Jordan Love is proves that Green Bay is probably going to have this guy for a long time, and they're not going to be worried about quarterbacks again. It goes from Favre to Rodgers, now to Jordan Love, and it's just incredible. And you can argue that he arguably has the worst receivers out of any of those guys
easily,
because Favre had some guys, and Aaron had some guys as well. Favre had some guys. I'm going to say that right now. Favre had some guys. Minnesota. You took a quarterback like top 15. I think maybe number 12, if I'm not mistaken, with J.J. McCarthy. And you took a shot in the dark in the offseason with Sam Darnold, and you nailed the Sam Darnold. And unfortunately, J.J. McCarthy goes down in the preseason, so there's no quarterback controversy at all this season. But you can't not pay Sam Darnold. Like he was tied for the league in touchdown passes, and he has like 5 or less interceptions prior to that game last night. So I don't know how you don't pay him, but what do you do with JJ McCarthy? And you see, unfortunately, what could happen with that draft pick. Because imagine Minnesota with a top 15 player in that draft that's not JJ McCarthy. That's immediately making an impact. It makes his team, maybe they have one less loss. Maybe they have one loss instead of 2, right? You don't know, but that's always the what ifs in those situations. But Minnesota has been leaning on their offense. And we did the wide receiver rankings last week, and go check that episode out. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson are up there. I'm just going to say that. So Vikings lead on the offense. Detroit. The decision making by Dan Campbell comes into scrutiny in the media a lot. Okay, that's fine. Maybe the onside kick at that moment wasn't the best time to do it, right? But at the same time, he didn't have it. To me, that was a special teams thing, and he did call for it. But anyway, the thing with Dan Campbell is you live and die by those calls, and you've won a lot of games on those calls. You're also going to lose games. So when your second place team in the division is 12-2, you can't really lose a ton of games, right? But they still got the playoffs. But there's a big but with Detroit. Their injuries are starting to pile up. They lost David Montgomery. They've lost, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 18 starters or something like that to this point so far.
It's bad.
And they are still leading the division at 12-2. So that shows you how good this football team is. But in terms of a run, I don't know. That's scary to me, because in the playoffs, you really need that depth, because it's bound to happen. Somebody on your team is going to get banged up. Everybody's banged up at the end of the season. Everybody is. You know what I mean? Except the guys, and even the guys on IR got banged up earlier in the season. But you got to win this division. You got to win this division if you're Detroit. You have to. You want everybody coming. Hopefully everybody can come through Detroit. Depends on what happens with the Eagles. But right now the Vikings and the Eagles are so close to that number 1 seed. If Detroit can get it, that's big. That's very big. We don't know what happens in terms of injuries when players come back, but a lot of injuries, a lot of big names that are out for the season. So good shit, Detroit. Minnesota, shock on the NFC side, and going to make playoffs. They've already clinched the playoffs. So Sam Darnold is my freaking NFC MVP at this damn point.
Yeah, and I want to kind of echo your point home. The Lions, I think, to have not any postseason success, but I think, to give them a favorable position in a lot of these games, they need that home field advantage. They need that number 1 seed. They need that bye week to get some guys healthy. It won't do a whole lot because a lot of these guys have multiple week injuries, but when you lose David Montgomery, when you lose Aiden Hutchinson, all these defensive linemen that they lost, pretty much like every week another one goes down. These corners, these defensive backs, like a couple guys on their offensive side too, but like you need to lock up that home field advantage because it's going to give you that extra boost in the playoffs, that you're going to need in these divisional rounds against these teams in a loaded NFC that's going to help you win those football games. Because if you're going to go on the road, if you're the 5 seed and you're going on the road against, the 4 seed, granted, you could probably win that game, but it's a game that you don't want to go up against, Baker Mayfield. You don't want to go up against Kirk Cousins. And if they got a day, like it could go poorly. We've seen that the Detroit offense has kind of not taken a step back amid all these injuries. It hasn't really affected them a whole lot. But you don't want your first bad game to be in the divisional round or in the wild card round against a team that just goes out there and just destroys your defense, because you're not going to be able to stop them. What if you can't? What if you miss a throw? What if you miss, it's all about these what ifs for the offense. Like, yeah, they're putting up points, but it it becomes a problem when your opponent is also putting up points every single game. You look at Detroit, you look at Buffalo, and it's like, okay, yeah, they're really good, but they lost because they lost by 2 to the Rams, and they put up 42 points. And it's like, that's a bad beat. That's a game you shouldn't lose. And it's an absolute barn burner. But if you're the Lions, you don't want to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles like that. You don't want to go up against, like the Minnesota Vikings if it comes down to that. At the Minnesota Vikings at home, the Eagles at home, like again, even an NFC South team at home, like that's gonna give them that extra little boost. And if they can just walk all over you offensively, and you make a couple mistakes offensively, boom, like that's the game. So it comes down to those little decisions, those little moments too. So I know Dan Campbell's very aware of that, as we saw in the NFC Championship last year, but it's not something that you want going into the postseason, just hanging up in the air, being like, oh yeah, we don't need home field advantage. Like it helps. I'll say it helps, especially when you got a team that relies on a running game that kind of relies on that kind of side of the ball. You want a team coming to you, so especially with all those injuries. But that number 1 seed, very, very important for Detroit. Not saying it's not important for other teams, but I'm saying Detroit is the one that needs it the most. So that being said, over to the Minnesota Vikings. I've been kind of talking about this with a couple people, and I think everyone is very much in agreement is Sam Darnold being the guy. Obviously they're 12-2. They have a chance at the number 1 seed. They just let Kirk Cousins go. Like you said, they took a shot in the dark at at Sam Darnold, just being like, all right, this is the guy who's been in here. Maybe he can back up JJ McCarthy, who's going to be our guy moving forward. Wait a minute, he's actually pretty good. Oh, wait, JJ McCarthy's done? Oh, wait, we're 12-2? It's like, it's one of those situations where it just falls in your lap, and what are you going to do about it? I think you keep riding the hot hand. I don't know if there's a world where you really sit back and say that it is a benefit to this franchise moving forward if we go with JJ McCarthy. I'm not saying that he's a bad quarterback. I'm not saying that he's, going to be, you know, Sam Darnold like when he was in New York. I'm not saying that he's going to be Zach Wilson. I'm saying he could be really good. He really could be. But when you got a guy in that place who you've seen play at an NFL level, who knows this offense, who has been thrown to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, making it look easy, and who has seemingly been very, very confident in winning you a whole lot of football games, I think you pay him. I think you pay him a couple years. I think you give him what he wants, and then you ride on it, because who cares at that point? Your team is good. Who cares if you went and got a first-round quarterback? Who cares if you have to sit him for 4 years? The Packers did it, and they're just fine. You're going to give Sam Darnold a whole lot of time to just see what he's got, because at least initially, what he's shown you. And if he can continue to repeat that success, you have yourself a franchise quarterback. If you don't, you have another one that you've drafted, and you're just kind of waiting for him to go. In terms of like in the eyes of JJ McCarthy, not the greatest situation, but what are you going to do? It's a business at the end of the day. I think you put the quarterback out there who's going to give you the best chance to win, and I don't think you let Sam Darnold walk out of that door. I really, really don't.
There's absolutely no way they do. And if they do, it's hey, well, weirder things have happened in the NFL, right? But right there with you. NFC South time, we only have one team that's eliminated in this division. 3-11, the Carolina Panthers. The New Orleans Saints still have a chance at 5-9. Obviously
That's
they would have
absurd.
to completely lose out and win. And then the Atlanta Falcons are sitting there at 7-7, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like I had said before, number one, 8-6. Carolina dumpster. You got so much to get, and they're real high. Don't look past them of just like making a splash and getting another quarterback, and everyone's like, what? You know what I mean? Like that, I could absolutely see that from Carolina. New Orleans, 5-9. That's not a good season. You know what I mean? I thought this team was 8-9 or 9-8, and right now, if they win 3 games, they're 8-9. So pretty close to that one. Atlanta started real hot. Kirk started real hot, and then it's come back to earth afterwards. Atlanta needs to feature Bijan more. I say it every year, every time. I thought it was done with Arthur Smith. I know they feature him a little bit more, but like, I get it. You take him out on drives, I understand, but like when he's in, he's getting 6-7 yards carry, and when you take him out, the production's just not. I'm not saying Tyler Allgeier's, not a great number 2 because he is, but it's a clear difference between Bijan and what he gives you in the pass game and everything in that sense. But Atlanta's a big question mark because most likely they could win the division. They're only 1 game back, but they haven't looked great. And to me, if it's the Buccaneers or it's them, I don't really think it's a toss up. I think if if Baker has a bad game, then Atlanta can squeak in and win that game. But I do think Tampa is like a better team than the Falcons from what I've seen this season. That's just my opinion. And then, like I said, leading right into Tampa Bay, shake and bake. When he's on, that team's winning. And when he's not, they're not winning. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And when your number 2 wide receiver is injured and Mike Evans has been hobbled, all of a sudden he doesn't carry an injury designation going into the game. Well, he drops 30 on fantasy, and you're like, there he is, found him, and he's probably going to get real close to 1,000 yards again after being injured, which is absurd if he actually does that. But he's getting closer and closer. Tampa Bay, Atlanta, right where we saw them. New Orleans took a step back. Carolina has been bad. So there's a summary for me on the division. You got the floor with the NFC South.
Question, real quick before we go on, I'm just curious. Does that division win a game in the playoffs, regardless of who comes out of it?
If it's the Buccaneers and Baker has a good week, yes. Baker, like you said just a second ago, all it takes is a couple bad plays from one team and a couple good plays from the other one. You're telling me if you're within a touchdown of Tampa, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that with Baker because he's gonna pull some shit, and they'll randomly go for 2 at the end and walk off and win. You know what I mean? Like
They just
that's
destroyed the
something.
Chargers.
That's another thing. The Chargers are a great team. We just
Playoff
talked
team.
about them, pumped their tires for so long, right? This is, yeah, man. This is Tampa's a good team, but at the same time, like you say, you don't want to play Tampa. You don't want to play these guys. Like, yeah, you're 100% right. You got to play somebody.
Mhm.
But Tampa, a good Tampa. You want to play good Tampa? Or do you want to play a good Rams? Do you want to play good Sea? Like all these teams are a toss up. You know what I mean? But keep going with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's curious. I'm curious to see how it's going to end up. I mean, they did last year, so it's like, they beat Philly. Like Tampa beat Philly last year.
Destroyed them.
Yeah, and it was not really close. That
No.
matchup has not gone well for Philly recently, or historically in recent memory. But like Baker can go out there and he can win games, especially in the playoffs. He's shown you that he can do it. So, like I said, don't give him an opportunity, and he'll take a mile. So, I've watched Baker for a long, long time. I know what he likes to do, and he likes having that chip on his shoulder. He even plays better when he has the chip on his shoulder. So, don't give him an opportunity. So, I think Baker's right where he wants to be in terms of Tampa Bay fans too. So, but overall to the NFC West, probably the most intriguing division, I would say, out of maybe all of them, because there's a chance. I don't think any team is eliminated, right, at this point, Chad?
The Niners are 6-8, not eliminated. Last place. Arizona 7-7, not eliminated. Seattle 8-6, not eliminated. Los Angeles Rams number 1, 8-6. You go ahead and take it away, this division. And this is the last division. We managed to actually do this time because last time we went like an hour and a half to 2 hours on the AFC, so we had to cut it short. So good job. Good job for us. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big question, at least for the top 2 teams in this division, what's up with Geno Smith? Is he playing is like how bad is that ankle injury or that leg? I'm not sure exactly what it is, but how bad is that injury, and will it prohibit him from getting on the field moving forward? Because you saw Sam Howell go out there and he looked real bad. He didn't look very good at all. So that is a
Whoa.
clear step down, probably one of the bigger ones of a team who is kind of going for that playoff spot. They needed to win the division. They're not making a wild card, whoever this team is. I mean, I guess they could, but it's a race between them and Washington, and I wouldn't pick an NFC West team to win that race. So it comes down to, can Geno play? And if he plays, at what level can he play? Right. So that is, you need the health of Geno Smith moving forward, because he basically is that offense. I have learned watching that game on Sunday night the other night. So I think the Rams are probably in the best position to win this division moving forward, just based on injuries and records. The Cardinals down there at 7-7 absolutely have a shot. I don't know their schedule moving forward. They do play Carolina this week. I do see that at the bottom. So that could be a layup for them, and a very beneficial win moving forward, especially if the Rams lose another one or Seattle loses another one. But this is, I think, the Rams division, not to lose at this point, but I think they're in the driver's seat a little bit here. Since they have that offense has started to become humming.
So the Rams play the Jets, the Cardinals,
Oh, here we
and
go.
then the Seahawks.
Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah. So it's very important. So that ended that they will probably play to the end of the year. I would imagine they would, and that Seattle
Absolutely.
game at the end of the year is going to be huge, absolutely huge. You need Geno back for that game. If you don't, you're not winning the division. Plain and simple. So a lot of divisional games coming up for the Rams, and they need to win them, because the last thing you want is to lose to the Cardinals and them hop right into your same exact record. And then if Seattle loses that week, this upcoming week, then it's a three-way tie for first, and then it's tiebreakers after that. And that's not a situation. That's not a fun situation, especially if you're a team that's lost in your division, like the Rams would have at that point. So it's going to come down to the last week, I think, for this division, and the health of Geno Smith. So I'm kind of counting out the Niners, unfortunately, just due to the losses that they've had. That record is kind of pretty tough to deal with, especially with the tiebreakers and things moving forward, and especially the fact that a lot of these teams at the upper top of this division do play each other. So someone's got to win. So it's going to be tough for the Niners moving forward. They have 8 losses, right? Is what you said?
Yeah, they're 6-8, so they got a 2-game.
Yeesh.
They have to win. They literally have to win minimum 2 games and hope that people lose out for them to even get a chance at making the playoffs. So for
And you
me,
need 2 teams to lose out. Oh no, 2 teams to get at least 2 losses at the top of that division.
yeah, so they need some help. So for me, I'm the Niners. Yeah, I mean they're not eliminated yet, not yet, but
It's real close.
you said it. They play each other, and somebody has to lose, and it's the division. So if the Rams go out and lose 2 division games, oh my, then it changes a lot of things, right? But if Seattle wins, you just have to wait to see, these last 3 weeks. But when you have a 2-game, when you're down by 2 games, there's only 3 games left, and they're playing the division. You could be look at that positively or look at that negatively.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of whatever way they want to frame it. The 49ers, though, massive disappointment this season. Injuries kind of plagued them, obviously. We'll see what happens coming into next season. This division, every team in this division is so close. Like, this is just one of those divisions where it's close. You have the Seahawks, healthy Geno Smith, JSN coming on. DK is a true number 1. Kenneth Walker's been injured practically throughout the entire season as well. Geno's not healthy. And then you have the Rams, who didn't have their starting wide receivers to start the season. So many injuries within this division, and the fact that Rams are 8-6 and have stolen a couple games, one of them being freaking Buffalo, like you mentioned. Like, this is another team that you just have. All you need is 1 week, all you need is 1 week in the playoffs, and you start getting momentum. And this is a team that could absolutely get some momentum with the Rams. And oh, by the way, they've been there before. They've got playoff experience. So we'll see what happens, but I'm taking the Rams in this division for sure. Seahawks, we don't know the extent of the injury. To me, the Rams look like a better team personally. I'm taking the coaching aspect as well for the Rams. And then you've got the Arizona Cardinals that beginning of the season we said we're a 500 team. Well, 7-7, they're 500, right? So this division with the 49ers, everybody thought was going to win it, and then they dropped to the last place because of all the injuries, like we said. So it's a division up for grabs. And you've got two teams right now. Well, three teams. I'm throwing Arizona in there too because only a 1-game lead. But fighting for it. We got a ton of football left, and the next podcast we do is going to be great because a couple weeks are going to go by, which means we're only going to have about 1 game left in the season.
Sure.
So the matchups are going to be real fun, especially this one being the last one, not next week. So that was the NFL standings. The rest of the podcast is going to go a little bit quicker. We've got Week 16 matchups. For all the bettors out there. Even Steven last week again. Tanner and I both picked 500. So it's kind of what happens with us. You know what I mean? Even Steven, both of us are sitting there. It is 0 piece. You got the Thursday game. And this is a hard freaking game, especially with what just happened to the Chargers last week. Tanner, you got the Broncos at the Chargers. Who do you got? Give
me the Chargers. I think Harbaugh gets it done. I think that running game is good. It's going to be a battle, though. I think this is going to be a, probably under 20 for both teams, points, that is. And it's going to be a grinded out kind of battle in the trenches, I think, because that's Harbaugh football, and Sean Payton's not afraid to play that way either. So I think this is an excellent example of just who is going to take the lead in this division. This is probably the game that will but definitely give someone a driver's seat for the number 2 part of this division. Who's going to get that higher seed? Who doesn't have to go to either Buffalo or KC? Kind of that 6th seed area. This is kind of the battle for that. So you want to be in the 6th seed. I don't think you want to go to Buffalo or KC. Pretty much either of those two options kind of scare you. So it'll be interesting. I don't envy that 7 seed is what I will say. But if you win this game, I think who has the higher record, right? The Broncos do, right? I'll say the Broncos.
They're 1 game above the Chargers with 9 wins.
Yeah,
Chargers got 8.
If the Broncos get 10 wins, that puts them a little bit closer to that 5 seed too, which is very nice because you would have to play the AFC South or potentially the AFC North, which is teams that have shown that they can lose. So I think this is a very important game for the Broncos. Obviously, very important for the Chargers. Very important for both teams, but I think the Broncos would benefit a little bit more from winning. But I'm going to go with the Chargers here. I think Harbaugh makes it interesting. That defense is humming right now, man. They play super well. I'm not saying Broncos isn't. They had just had a very, very good game against the Colts, but it's the Colts, So I got the Chargers in this one. Give me Harbaugh.
The Saturday games, because we got Saturday games on the slate now for the rest of the season. We got the Texans at the Chiefs. Now, obviously, with a fully healthy Patrick Mahomes, I'm going Chiefs all the way. But the fact that they need to just win a couple games, I think what their strategy is going to be is just let's get Pat those couple wins and let's sit them. So I'm going to go Chiefs on this one, even an injured Chiefs. If Mahomes doesn't make the start, I will make the caveat. Now, I'm not going back on my picks, but what I'm saying for the bettors out there, if Wentz makes that start, all bets are off the table when it comes to that. I'm picking the Houston Texans, and I'm starting Isaiah Pacheco in fantasy because they're just going to feed him the rock with the Chiefs. But with Mahomes playing, you watched an injured Mahomes with a high ankle sprain beat a Philadelphia Eagles team in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to take them against the Houston Texans when all they need is 1 win, maybe 2 wins for the rest of the season. So I'm going Chiefs at home with the Chiefs. Another Saturday game, another unbelievable division matchup. We have the Steelers at the Ravens. Tanner, who do you got in this one?
Steelers won last time, right? I believe.
The Steelers.
They did? Is that correct? I don't remember. But I think
I'm pretty sure I did. Let me check.
I'm going to go. It won't change my decision, I don't think. It will just kind of enforce it. But I'm going to go Baltimore here. I just think I want to say Baltimore is at home on this game, right?
Yeah, it's at Baltimore.
Okay, so this is in Baltimore. They're going to give that extra push.
That was the game where the Steelers won 16-18. Remember that? Yeah, I remember that game now.
Yeah, and I know, I don't know how you can not call it a fact at this point, but Lamar definitely has a step down in his play when he plays the Steelers, but this one just kind of feels a little bit different. I think Lamar's going to get it done. I think he's a little pissed about this whole Josh Allen MVP thing, not winning the division. They've looked clearly at the beginning of the year that they looked clearly like the best team in this division, and now the Steelers are starting to run away with it a little bit. So I think Baltimore gets
Two
this
game
win.
lead.
Baltimore gets this win and makes this division really interesting, and it's probably going to come down to the last week. So I got Baltimore. Give me Lamar. I can't pick against them right now.
And if Steelers win this week, it's all but certain that,
Mm-hmm.
that they lock this puppy up. So this is a massive, massive week for Steeler Nation as well, and the Ravens playoff hopes because they go to a 6th loss team if that happens.
Oh yeah.
Sunday game now, the Eagles at the Commanders. That's right, another division matchup. I know at the beginning of the year I said I was going to split these teams, but I can't go against the Eagles right now. I just can't. I don't see the way Jaden played when he played the Eagles last time. That was a step down.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, until I see different, I'm gonna keep going with the Eagles. So give me the Eagles. That division's already locked up. But like I said, Philly's chasing that number 1 seed in the NFC, and they're gonna keep chasing it because if you have to go through Philly in the NFC, to me, that's the biggest home field advantage in the NFC. Like that, I've been to the city before, and like I can't even imagine the stadium. You know what I mean? The shit you see in the city, and then you go. That's stadiums. That's a whole new level. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
those fans are so passionate, and like the tailgate scene must be unbelievable. There must be absolutely unbelievable. So give me the Eagles. We got the next game Sunday. This is huge. We talked about this a little bit earlier. 6-8 49ers. 6-8 Miami Dolphins. Both teams have to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. It's at the Dolphins. Do the 49ers put it together? Or does Tua go out there and get his thing done with Achane?
That was tough because both teams are kind of like in that gray area where you're just like, I don't really know
Yeah.
which team's going to show up. Because the Dolphins looked horrible this past week, and Tua was just not good at all. So
No.
I don't know the whole situation on Jalen Waddle, but him being out of that game, I think clearly affected Tua not having that number 2 receiver pretty much anytime he wanted it. So I'm gonna go with the Niners here. I think the Niners get the win. I think Miami seals it up, and that's the season for him. But Brock Purdy's not bad. Any week he can show up and show out. This is a good Miami Dolphins defense though, so I think it's probably gonna be lower scoring. But I don't know. I think Garendo has played all right in place of McCaffrey and Mason, but I got them winning. I don't know. The Dolphins, they're so explosive, but when you can just absolutely, you know, bundle like 3 guys on Tyreek Hill, it makes it a little bit more difficult, especially on Tua's side. So I know Achane has been fantastic, but again, like it's one less thing you got to worry about with Waddle not out there. I think Achane will get his. I really hope he does. I'm starting him in fantasy, but um, you know, give me the Niners, but I think it's going to be a nasty football game.
The Sunday night football game, we've got the Bucks at the Cowboys. I hate to pick against the boys, but got to pick against the boys here. I'm going to give the Bucks, especially the lean at home for the Cowboys. They can't seem to play that well at home this season. They're a little bit better as of recently, but haven't seemed to play very well. Dallas has a 3-game win streak right now. Cooper Rush is playing real well, throwing some games together, stringing them together. That's good, but
It
this
feels
Bucks team is.
it feels like something bad is about to happen.
Yeah, it does. It feels like a blowout's about to happen. So for me, I'm gonna go Bucks on this one, and not to mention if they go up a couple games on Atlanta after this one on a Sunday night, dominant win. That's big. That's real big. So for me, Bucks. Cooper Rush has looked real good.
Yes.
I do think he gets a couple touchdowns. I think Rico Dowdle started to play a lot better, but this Bucks team is just too good. And who the hell is going to cover Mike Evans? Last game,
Diggs out for the
Monday
year.
night. Yeah, Trayvon's out for the year, 6 to 8 months. Another Dallas injury goes down. That's the same thing with Dallas. Got a ton of injuries, but
Potentially
they weren't
next year
playing.
too.
True, and they weren't playing that well before the injury, like when the injuries happened. So regardless, not a good football team in Dallas this year. Give me Bucks Monday night. Saints at the Packers. I'm gonna just go ahead and write this one in already because I know who you're gonna pick. But let's tell the people.
This is Jordan Love football. Go Pack, go baby! And I can't believe I'm even saying that. Jordan Love might be my out of the 3, the Favre Rodgers. He might be my favorite, just based on his play. I mean, you watch him play, and you're just like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with this football ripping it 50 yards down the field? It was picked. Oh, okay, I get it. Romeo Dobbs corner of the end zone touchdown. And you're like, this is Packers football. This is Jordan Love football. So yeah, give me the Packers on Monday night against the Nolans Nola. I don't know. I was trying to make something funny. They're bad. They're bad at football. They don't have a quarterback. Hayner's gonna. You actually almost beat the Commanders this last week. Funny enough, um,
Did
I don't think he's gonna have that success against the Packers. Their defense is good. So
Packers are too good to stop, and that train, like you said, is rolling. All right, that is the NFL portion of the episode. Now we're going to college football. We've got Heisman talk, but we got to talk about Travis Hunter a little bit first. I know he won the Heisman, but I've given you some prospect profiles on Travis Hunter, but this is the most updated one, and got to talk about him because right afterwards we're gonna have some Heisman talk, and then we're gonna talk about who we think should have won the Heisman. Travis Hunter prospect profile for me, truly an elite playmaker on both sides of the ball. Now he gets the Heisman to add, winning trophy collection that he's already gotten picked up. The kid's special. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He solidified himself, in my opinion, as a top 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. But like you said earlier, how high is he going to go? He was extremely productive on both sides of the ball. But now the big question, where the hell do you play him?
mm-hmm.
Do you play him as a wide receiver or a cornerback? Because for me, those are the two positions that he's most likely going to be in the NFL. But again, that's not the worst decision to have when you're the NFL GM, because if one doesn't work, you can just move him to the other side. In April, it's going to be fun to see where he gets drafted. Personally, for me, I think he's going to go top 3, if not top 2. It just depends on how much the team needs a quarterback at number 2. And he's not ever going to be the worst decision for an NFL GM, because it's kind of like you're drafting a couple players in one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Except he's done them at a Heisman winning level, which is absolutely absurd. He's one of the most athletic football players I've ever seen play college, ever. And you have to be athletic when you play both sides of the ball. And if there ever was a layup in the NFL draft, this is the layup pick. You know what I mean? This is the one where it's like you just can't miss. His Heisman, his stats, 92 receptions for 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns. That's not bad. That's averaging like 12 yards a reception, right? Like above 12 yards a reception. Defense, he's got 1 forced fumble, 4 interceptions, and 11 passes defended so far. Not bad. Not bad at all. And everything that he does on both sides of the ball, especially with everything that's around him, is pretty impressive. And Shador showed, a lot of bright spots this season, and a lot of them were to Travis Hunter. So it's one of those things where it's like, how much of that was Shador and how much of that was Travis Hunter? The one thing you can never take away from him is that his athleticism and his brand that he's already bringing with him. You know what I mean? And I can't respect him enough for that. You know what I mean? He's already got a brand coming with him. And Travis Hunter, for sure, is going to be a fun player in the NFL. I know you've watched Travis Hunter. I know you've watched Colorado a little bit. What do you think about this guy? I mean, earlier you kind of alluded to it. You said top 5. I think that's pretty much a lock. But in terms of position, I mean, do you see him being kind of like a cornerback, and then they put him on kick returns? Like maybe throw him in there for wideout every now and then? I mean, it's so much you could do with that player. You know what I mean?
I would love for him to get drafted to, one of those savvy offensive coordinators like a Ben Johnson, like a Kevin O'Connell, but I just, probably not going to happen. Depending on where Ben Johnson goes in free agency, we could see him maybe in New York, maybe over there at some of those top pick teams, maybe in Chicago. I don't think he lasts till Chicago, but I think you got to get a guy who knows how to use him. That's pretty much where it stands, because absolutely you could go out there. But you could bang your head on a wall about where you're going to put this guy. But granted, the opposing defensive coordinator is going to bang his head against the wall because he has no idea where you're going to play Travis Hunter, right? So I think it's an interesting question because what I would want to see is I would want to see more of a defensive guy, cornerback, who can absolutely go in for plays on offense. You know, he's shown you that he can play a whole lot of plays in a football game and he'd be just fine. But get some like special plays. You know, the Cowboys do it a lot with Cavante Turpin, where they just kind of bring him in, and he makes an immediate impact, whether it's in the backfield, you know, in the running back spot, or if he's kind of in that 22 personnel where you do have a running back on there and you know Travis Hunter is the other guy on the other side of the quarterback, right? Or you know you can put him in on a third down, kind of an empty set kind of passing situation where he has kind of a route that he can run kind of underneath and kind of do whatever he wants, but you can put him in a whole lot of spots. I think you hit it pretty much the nail right on the head where it's like I would love to see him as a defensive guy come in for, you know, kick return, punt returns, some plays on offense, and just kind of be that Swiss Army knife guy that you can really do and put anywhere on the field in all three facets of the game because he is so good, because he has that explosiveness and that energy. And when you're going to get a guy who has the hands that he has, I mean, he's got 14 touchdowns, you can just throw him in the red zone, you know, regardless of whether you're on offense or defense. You know, he's shown that he can make red zone picks, he can get red zone receptions. It's a very, very similar style of kind of boxing out, especially when you're going for those kind of corner end zone kind of fades. So I think he's beneficial in a lot of different ways, especially in the red zone, just in general. So I think he brings, like you said, a unique skill set, but just the hands alone on him, if he is going to play on the defensive side of the ball, is going to give him just a leg up on so many other guys in terms of just, you know, being able to, you know, jump that route. Boom, he gets that pick, and it's like, oh man, well, that was easy. You know, it's like we saw Diggs coming out. He was not even close to this type of athlete, but he had those hands. You know, we know he can catch the ball and he can jump a route. And Travis Hunter can easily do that without any question. And he can do it probably the best out of any college athlete I've seen, maybe ever, you know, in terms of just the
Dion.
ability. Yeah, probably Dion. I wasn't, unfortunately, I wasn't old enough to see him play in college. So it's just, my lifeline, it's like, this is the guy. You know, so I think you're absolutely correct. Absolute layup of a pick. I would love to see him go number one overall. Granted that the number one overall pick is not like Las Vegas or New York, the Giants being. So I don't know. It's a very interesting situation, but you're going to have to know how to use him because how many players have you seen in the NFL that come into the NFL and just can't do a whole lot because their coach, they just don't know how to be coached. They just don't know how to be used. Like you can't put them in this situation. You can't, like the coaching staff doesn't know where to put them. So they just don't have that much success. And I really hope that doesn't happen to Travis Hunter because he is such a fantastic athlete. But if he gets in the right situation, he could be so dangerous. Just something we've never seen before, really.
It's gonna be fun. You know what I mean? It's gonna be real fun. But we got to talk about this side of it because we are football fans, and I specifically, I wanted to bring this up because don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from Travis Hunter's Heisman, but to me, Jonty, in my opinion, if I had to vote, may or may not have had the nod there. And we're gonna go to a little bit of game now with Jonty. Okay, we're gonna go through the top 30 rushers of all time. And we're going to see where Jonty is on this list. We're going to start at number 30. Okay. Byron Hanspard, playing in 1996 for Texas Tech. He had 2,000 yards. Okay. J.K. Dobbins, sitting there at 28. Jonathan Taylor, sitting there at 29.
Nice.
J.K. Dobbins has, this is absurd, 2,003 yards. Jonathan Taylor, 2,003 yards. This is a single season, by the way. Just one season. Mm-hmm. That's all we're doing right now. Okay. So we've already broken in the top 30. We've established that Jonty is ahead of these guys, right? Troy Davis, number 27. 1995, Iowa State. He got 2,010 yards. Number 26, Ray Rice, at 2,012 yards for Rutgers in 2007. Then we have Malcolm Perry at 25 with, this is absurd, 2017 yards in Navy. I'm pretty sure that was their quarterback because Navy runs the ball all the time. I'm pretty sure that was their quarterback.
which is absolutely absurd. Then you had J.J. Arrington in 2004 from Cal. You have Christian McCaffrey in 2015. He had 2,019 yards. You had Devontae Foreman from the University of Texas, 2,028 yards. You were at number 21 with Tevin Coleman with 2,036 yards. I have still not said Jonty's name.
Nope.
So now we are in the top 20 all time. All time, we're in the top 20. Okay, just going there. Rashawn Salam, 2,055 yards, Colorado. Donald Brown, 2,083 yards. Larry Johnson, 2,087. Chuba Hubbard, we got to see him play for Oklahoma State.
Nice.
2,094 yards. We are at 17, folks. Bryce Love, 2,118 yards. Stanford. Ricky Williams, the University of Texas stud.
That's a guy.
21-24. Matt Forte.
Oh.
Matt Forte, 21-27. Donnell Pumphrey, number 13, 21-33. Mike Rozier, number 12, 21-48. LaDainian Tomlinson at number 11, 21-58. Andre Williams, 21-77. At number 10, we are in the top 10, folks. Number 9, Troy Davis, 21-85. Number 8, we already said his name, but he had another good season. Jonathan Taylor, 21-94.
That's crazy.
Derrick Henry at number 7 with 22-19. Rashad Penny at number 6, 22-48 for San Diego State, the Aztecs, some of the sickest helmets in the game.
What year was that?
Nope.
That's San Diego State.
2017.
Yeah, that was pretty recent.
Number 5, 1981 USC, Marcus Allen, 23-42. We are at number 4, Jonty, 24-97.
Damn.
He hasn't played bowl games yet. Kevin Smith, 25-67, number 3. Melvin Gordon, 2014 Wisconsin, 25-87.
Oh, yeah.
And Barry Sanders with 26-28.
So are these
for Oklahoma State?
Are these all including their final bowl games? So that would be 13 total games.
I think that this is all of their yards. And you got to remember also, like, it's not a fair comparison because Jonty, he could play, 3 more games.
He could.
Right? Like, technically he could with bowl games included. But regardless, I just wanted to say that to bring up the point. That's why I think that Jonty, for me, kind of got the nod for Heisman. And not to mention the fact that with Jonty specifically, you knew they were giving him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
He got the ball 30 times a game. And he still got games that were over 200. He got top 5 all-time rushing yards. So for me, it's tough. For me, I had the nod to Jonty, but I'm not mad that it went to Travis Hunter. Mm-hmm. So I just had to say that to give you an idea of how incredible the season we just witnessed from Jonty was. And unfortunately, not a Heisman winner.
I think in any other year, he would have been the Heisman. I mean, you got Travis Hunter is a once-in-a-lifetime athlete that you have to give the Heisman just based on the sheer volume of what he's doing. And I'm not saying I don't think the thing is, like, either one of these players could have won the Heisman. And you're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, okay, I got it. I'm glad it wasn't between a quarterback and one of these guys. I'm glad it wasn't a situation where it's like, okay, yeah, the quarterback clearly the best player in the nation this year. And it's like, I love that they're like, okay, our top 2 guys is a running back and Travis Hunter, who is defensive back / receiver. You know what I mean? Like, he's 2 positions. So I think that gave him the nod. Just the fact that no one has really done what he is doing. He's revolutionizing kind of college football atmosphere and Colorado just as a school. So that's kind of why, at least I understand why they gave it to him. But the voting was pretty close. It wasn't like super one-sided to Hunter. Like, what Jonty is doing is it doesn't happen often. Like he said, I mean, he's 4th all-time in rushing. He still hasn't even played a bowl game. So in a single season. So he's going to be fantastic. I wish that he could have gotten, I wish that they could have like split it or something. But in any other year, literally any other season, if he does this, he's the Heisman, hands down. Doesn't matter. So I think that's kind of what he has to go into. The NFL season, kind of thinking of like, yeah, I didn't win a Heisman, but I probably should have. I could have if I did this 1 year earlier, then I could have done it. So I mean, I saw a bet that was like, I don't remember how much it was. It was like 2,000 rushing yards or something like that. If he didn't get 2,000, he had to shave his braids off his head from his teammates or something, and he easily got 2,000. So he's not shaving those anytime soon. But he's fantastic. I can't wait to see where he goes in the NFL draft. How high NFL GMs value him. I would value him as a top 5 pick. And if you're an NFL franchise in need of a running back, even a little bit, take him because you're going to get a very good one for the next 4 to 5 years. So I love John T. I wish Dallas could have a chance to draft him. I don't think they will. But he's fantastic, and he's the best running back we've seen probably since, like you said, Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor. Or maybe
Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon
Bring
up
in
there.
Melvin Gordon.
100% too.
That was such a good season. And then, hey, at the NFL, he went the Chargers, went the Broncos, had a couple stints other places. But John T's a fascinating story, like you said, a fun one, and you don't get to see running backs like this too often.
Out of Boise State.
Like
Boise State of all places.
Boise State. Thad Castle's Boise State.
You know what I mean? They put 9 to 10 people in the box every single time. And the reason they don't put 11 in the box to stop him is because you have to have someone on the receiver out wide. That's the only if they didn't, they would put 11 because they know they're running the ball. So it's just, and he still gets 200 rush yards a game. So it's baffling that he's even doing this.
He's an incredible football player, and like you said, we're going to get into so much more draft talk, especially this year. Whenever we come back, in a week, we're not going to be here next week, but the following week. Don't you worry. I'm going to start coming with heat. We're not only going to be talking about some prospects, we're going to be talking about a lot of prospects. I'm going to go deep, go heavy into all these prospects like we always do. Tanner's going to bring back maybe some basketball hour. Who the heck knows? You know what I mean? What's crazy is we are getting close to the end of the season for the NFL, which is absolutely absurd. It felt like last week we just started the season. But that is all the football talk we have for this episode. We're going to introduce a new segment for you folks. And today it's going to be a little bit different. Usually what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about a random video game. Like I said, Tanner and I are gamers and just throw in random video games. Maybe it's going to be a new one. Maybe it's going to be an old one. Maybe it's going to be one we just recently played. Who the hell knows? And also, we're thinking about posting some of this stuff to our Instagram because when I talk about Red Dead Redemption 2, I mean, you're going to lose it. Like I've got me falling off of cliffs without even knowing it's there. Like the video game highlights are absurd, and not to mention the NHL hip checks. Anyway, this week we are talking Pokemon, and it's going to be the mobile game. Tanner, you kind of lead us off with this because you're the one that got me into this game, and then we are actually going to try to see if we can get a decent card at the end of this podcast, both of us together. So if you're watching on YouTube, you picked a good day to do it. If you didn't, maybe the reaction will help you out. But Tanner, tell us what this game is, what it's called, what it does, all that fun jazz.
So it's called Pokemon Trading Card Game, TCG Pocket. I guess that's the full name technically. If you kind of been living under a rock and you do like Nintendo games, just Pokemon in general, I don't know how you haven't heard of this game. It's pretty much everywhere. It's like #1 on the App Store, Google Play Store, whatever you want, anywhere right now. It's super fun. All you do is it's like literal physical cards. But it's on your phone, and you just open packs, and they give you a couple. They give you 5 cards, and you just randomly, if you get a really good card, then you can use it. You can use it in battle, and you can battle against your friends and pretty much like build your decks and do it however the heck you want. And it's real Pokemon cards that have been in serialization for a long time, and it's just a great blast from the past if you're a 90s kid, if you're a 2000s kid, and you grew up with Pokemon like Chad and I did. So I've played multiple Pokemon games, and Chad just pretty much every time I turn around, he's playing a Pokemon game, and I'm like, which region are you going to this time, man? And he's like, oh, I'm going, to this one. So and I got fun.
I got a lot of games. I got a lot of Pokemon games we get to talk about. That's why it's going to be real fun. And don't you worry, I got the lineups even for my Pokemon and the levels. So for those real gamers out there, you can know how real of a gamer I am. But yeah, like you said, it's an app game and it's super nostalgic. You know what I mean? Like we used to get these packs from Target for a lot cheaper than what they are now.
Mm-hmm.
And we would bring them to elementary school and play each other in elementary school. And unfortunately, you'd make some trades, and I will never confirm nor deny that I participated in this, but some trades made some decks. We'll just say that, and other decks were not made. And Pokemon may or may not have been banned in my elementary school because of it. But I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It was not me. Anyway, we're gonna pull these packs. Usually, we're just gonna kind of talk about the game for a little bit, but we're actually gonna pull the packs. Tanner came up with the idea, so I'll go ahead and go first. And if you're watching on YouTube, again, take a look at my side of the screen. So I can open up a pack, right? I'm opening up a pack with Mew on it. Right
put
here,
a little
folks.
bit over. Put it over that way. There you go. That's center screen.
That's the pack right there. I'm going to go ahead
today.
and open it. It came out today. I'm going to go ahead and open it.
We're
going to see. We're going to see how. So we're going to skip through here. All right, here we go. Let's see what we got. Let's see if we got anything good. That's not good. That's not good. That's also not good.
You got
the same card that's not good. And horrible. So for me, unsuccessful. And Tanner, believe it or not, has been the one that has not been too successful in terms of the polls when I've been with him. Whenever he's been with his other friends, he gets these pack polls. But it's just a game where you collect Pokemon cards, and instead of going out and having to buy them, they're on your phone
for free.
So that's kind of what it is, and that's my gaming segment for this week. Tanner, finish this off for us, and give me a good card so we can show the fans.
I've only pulled like a couple of these packs, but I know one of my friends, Alex, has already gotten like one of the best cards in this pack. So I'm hoping, I feel like the luck is rubbing off on me a little bit. I haven't gotten a good pack in a while, but we're gonna go. I'm gonna kind of move my mic over a little bit. We're gonna go and we're gonna open it up. We're gonna get this. Oh yeah, I use my energy or whatever it's called, and we're gonna get a good pull here. Can you see it? You can kind of see it.
Now I can see it. I will go ahead and commentate here. All right, he's gonna pick.
If you didn't know, you can kind of slide it around and pick which one you want. I don't know if that's a thing you've been doing, but
didn't know that.
Gonna pick. This is the one it lands on. We're gonna pick this one. All right.
All right, here we go. He's opening the pack as we speak.
I'm like going reverse.
He didn't get it all the way.
It's kind of hard to see. Well, third time's the charm. Wait for it. There we go.
There we go. Full time, folks.
Can you see this at all?
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good. That's another.
That's also not good.
What about this one?
Hey, a little shiny.
I don't know. It's definitely not shiny. It also uses fire, water, and like a random one. It's dragon type.
People are like, this is a sports podcast.
Okay, I think this is the last one afterwards. It's not a good one. Not very good. I got a Magmar though. It's kind of hype.
No good.
80,
no good pulls this
It does
week.
80 damage. It's a very good basic card. Not insane, but if you're pulling for Magmortar, this is a good basic card. But not too bad. Not the worst thing in the world, but not very good. Really,
not very good. Not very good at all. But good game. You can collect a bunch of cards. I've got a ton of good cards. Tanner's got a ton of good cards on there. And if you message us, on Instagram, maybe or maybe not, we'll show you the binder of the deck we got. You know what I mean? It is top notch at this point. But Tanner, let's talk sports in a couple weeks, and we'll bring some fire for that game segment at the end of it. And we're also going to talk a lot of college football because there's going to be some games that are done by that point too. So,
oh yeah,
we'll see you in a couple weeks, folks.
Absolutely. Enjoy the holidays and comment below which game you want to see us review. I will, if you comment below a game that I haven't played, I will go and play the game and give you a review. How about that? If you're still listening and you're a big gamer and don't pick Dark Souls or anything like that. I'm not that good at video games. No Soulsborne, none of those, please. However, any other game, maybe if I have enough money, but, we'll see you next week. Go watch the NBA. I think the NBA Cup is starting the championship in 30 minutes. I think it's the Bucks and then the Thunder. So two very good teams.
The amount of people that give a shit are right behind me.
Yeah. Hey, you get like $500K or something like that if you win. That's really cool for a couple players.
I'm just kidding. I like the NBA. My team just sucks right now. Okay, I'm sorry.
The banner kind of sucks. It's not a championship, but it is fun. And it's basketball, so that's cool. Go watch the NBA and then leave a game down below. Have a good one.
Jog on.
folks.